Salama Moussa, born into a wealthy, landowning Coptic family in the town of Zagazig located in the Nile Delta, Egypt. Salama Moussa was a journalist, writer, advocate of secularism, and pioneer of Arab socialism. He wrote or translated 45 published books. His writings still influence Arab thought and he is frequently referred to. Salama Moussa campaigned against traditional religion and urged Egyptian society to embrace European culture. He looked for political and economic independence of Egypt from the British colonization. To this end he corresponded with Gandhi, who provided him with his tools of economic struggle against the British hegemony over the Indian textile industry. Moussa made use of his contact with Gandhi in helping out the national Egyptian industrialist Raafat Hub to set up independent outlets for the Egyptian textile industry nationwide in Egypt, an attempt that was vehemently resisted by the British colonial powers of the time. Moussa pleaded, for instance, in his book Kaulai Alamuni for the independence of thought and indigenous creativity of the contemporary Egyptians and Arabs. Moussa went in his youth to England and adhered there to Bernard Shaw's Fabian Society. Early life. Moussa's father died when Salama Moussa was still a young child, leaving the family an inheritance that allowed them to live comfortably. Salama Moussa received his elementary education in a Coptic school, but in 1903 he moved to Cairo to receive a secondary education. The Khedivial College where Moussa attended was run like a military camp with harsh punishment for misbehavior dished out by the British instructors. In Cairo during the early 20th century there was rising anti-British sentiment rooted in the nationalist movement, and Kashim Aman's movement for the liberation of women was creating a stir. While in Cairo, Moussa was exposed to writers such as Farah Antoun, Gerja Zaidan, and Ahmad Lutfi al-Said that discussed modern and at the time radical ideas such as social Darwinism, women's rights, and nationalism. Growing up as a religious minority in Muslim-dominated Egypt, he was attracted to these ideas. After secondary school, Moussa was interested in studying European literature and science, but was unable to receive a post-secondary education in Egypt, because this advanced education was monopolized by Al-Azhar and Dar al-Uloom, both of which required students to be Muslim. Europe. In 1907, Moussa traveled to France to continue his education and he was exposed to a modern, secularized Europe rampant with socialist ideologies. Moussa also experienced a new and empowered woman with social freedoms. In Monterrey, a small village near Paris, he started studying socialism and evolution, and the French language. Moussa studied Egyptian civilization upon his return to Egypt in 1908. In 1909 he moved to England to improve his knowledge of the English language, and briefly studied law at Lincoln's Inn. In England, socialism was on the rise as well as ideas of social Darwinism. Moussa had a lot of interactions with members of the Fabian Society and became a member in July 1909. Moussa embraced Fabian ideas of getting rid of the landed classes and empowering the peasant, the ideas, and wanted to realize them in Egypt. In 1910, he wrote his first book, Muqaddimat al-Superman, comparing European life with the lives of the Egyptians and the social injustices they faced on a daily basis. In 1914, Salama Moussa returned to Egypt and started his first weekly magazine, Al-Mustaqbal, with Farah Antoun and Yaqub Sarraf on topics such as evolution, national unity, and socialism. The British-controlled government responded to these radical ideas by shutting down the magazine after 16 issues. The 1920s were an active time for Moussa as well as Egypt and were considered a revolutionary period in culture and literature. Moussa formed a socialist party, which was promptly dissolved under pressure and intimidation by the government. In the same year, he proceeded to establish the Egyptian Academy for Scientific Education, which was, after only 10 years of operation, shut down by the government as well. Moussa wanted Egypt to shift to a Europeanized thought and abandon old traditions and customs regarding the role of women in Egyptian life in secularism, and so was criticized and attacked. In 1936, he proclaimed that socialism would sweep Egypt before he turned 100 years old. He spent a brief stint as editor for the Social Affairs Ministry, and, in 1942, Moussa was jailed on charges of sabotage, which were trumped-up charges for criticizing the ruling family. Revolution. The 1952 revolution was a turning point in Egyptian history where Nasserism was taking hold and nationalization of Egypt had begun. Salama Moussa remained an important figure during this period and was appointed supervisor of the science section in Akbar al-Umm, a position that he held until his death in 1958. Legacy. Salama Moussa believed that the minority Copts were descended from the pharaohs and therefore the true Egyptians. He fought to try and get the Egyptian dialect taught as the official language. In the 1930s, Moussa abandoned his nationalistic ideas and reaffirmed his belief in a shared humanity. Moussa was also an advocate of secularism, democracy, and the liberation of women. Salama Moussa supported workers' and peasants' rights, an improved working environment, and reforms in public education. Seminars led by Moussa discussing social issues drew large crowds of young intellectuals. Salama Moussa became seriously ill and died on 4 August 1958, a few months after turning 71. Publications. Divine Thoughts and Their Origin. Treatise about Socialism. The most well-known love affairs in history. Reading Matters on Elections. Dreams of a Philosopher. Freedom of Thought and its Representatives. Secrets of the Inner Life. History of Art and the most well-known pieces of work. Today and Tomorrow. Descent and Development of Mankind. Stories about life and culture, our duties and the tasks of foreign countries. Gandhi and the Indian Revolution. Renaissance in Europe. Egypt, a place where civilization began. The world in 30 years. Modern English culture. Our life as from 50. Freedom of thought in Egypt. Eloquence in the Arabic language. My and Your Intellect. The years of Salama Moussa's apprenticeship. The True Path of the Young People. Psychological Attempts. These Are My Mentors. The Book of Revolutions. Psychological Studies. The woman is not the plaything of the man of the woman at that time, especially in the Orient. George Bernhard Shaw. Attempts of the Young People. Forbidden Writings. Mankind is the Pride of Creation.